In AECT Standard 1, candidates demonstrate the knowledge necessary to create, use, assess, and manage theoretical and practical applications of educational technology and processes. At first glance, Standard 1 is quite similar to Standard 2, but there is a key difference, and that is on how knowledge versus pedagogy works. While Standard 2 keys more towards how to use educational technology to enhance teaching, Standard 1 is entirely more practical, focusing on what I've learned and how I've developed overall. In my time as a student in the MET program, I've had many opportunities to practically apply educational technologies and processes, and those opportunities have led to authentic learning opportunities for me. Of these learning opportunities, what sticks out the most is learning about RSS during EdTech 501, Intro to Ed Technology, and applying those lessons to a blogging activity during EdTech 537, Blogging in the Classroom, and in putting together a technology grant during EdTech 551, Tech and Grant Writing. Learning about RSS, an acronym for Really Simple Syndication, was one of the first assignments I was tasked with learning about during this master's program. And in that assignment, I learned so much about how a user could subscribe to a web-based feed and receive news or information on their own custom aggregator, whether it be browser-based, mobile, or whatever. I jumped with 2 feet into utilizing the technology, and I actually built a sophisticated lesson plan on the technology. Having my students use RSS feeds and individual blogs hosted on a variety of platforms to complete a visual SAT vocabulary assignment, then both subscribing to their posts and assigning their peers to follow along and comment on their posts as well. While RSS seems to have taken a step back from the mainstream, the basis of this technology is one that others have crawled onto the shoulders of, from social media like Twitter and Facebook to audio and video news sources like podcasts. I'm proud to have been involved in this master's for such an interesting transitional time in web-based technology. I also took advantage of the MET program's stated standards to gain practice in managing people, processes, and resources, and in no place was that more clear than in my development of a technology grant request for my current high school, Rio Lindo Adventist Academy. Our students are more comfortable with mobile devices, but many of them struggle academically because of a lack of more formal, long-form writing devices, such as laptops or Chromebooks. It was my goal to write a grant requesting funds for our school to develop Chromebook laboratories in each of our boarding dorms, train student workers and teachers how to utilize the technology, and assess how they were being used after a few weeks and months of utilizing them. While we were never able to actually complete the submission of that grant, putting together the document was a great experience that I learned so much from. In AECT Standard 2, candidates demonstrate effective implementation of educational technologies and processes based on contemporary content and pedagogy. At first glance, Standard 2 is quite similar to Standard 1, but there is a key difference, and that is on pedagogy versus knowledge. While Standard 1 keys more towards how to use educational technology practically, Standard 2 focuses more on what I've learned to enhance my teaching. I'm excited by how much I've been able to take away from the MET program in strengthening my pedagogical powers. And I think 2 of the best pieces of evidence for this lie in my EdTech 554, Managing Technology Integration in Schools 21st Century Curriculum, and in my EdTech 501, Introduction to Educational Technology School Environment Evaluation. As I've developed as a teacher and ed technologist, I've developed quite a distaste for educators taking a classic lesson plan that hasn't changed in years and simply sprinkling some technology on top. Using technology doesn't mean making a lesson plan from 1983 but on Google Docs. It means using new tools to create a learning experience that wouldn't have been possible before. During EdTech 554, I had the opportunity to go back and rethink a lesson plan I'd used before and putting a 21st century spin on it. Starting with the Arthurian tale, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, I developed a multi-step multimedia project involving students collaborating on elements from the story, translating them into a digital video, and hosting them on a website for a fictional school that taught the morals and ethics of the story. I'm proud to have developed an interesting and innovative plan to appropriately utilize technology in a way to enhance student learning. Right as I was starting my MET journey, the young school I was at was beginning their journey of transitioning to a one-to-one iPad school. While we were very proud of the commitment to technology that we had clearly displayed, I found through the use of the school environment evaluation tool from EdTech 501 that perhaps we had less to be proud of than we thought. Our administration and teaching staff was more hesitant to make commitments to technology growth. And while we had felt that insight throughout our early years, the SEE tool was a great resource that allowed me to really put my finger on what our problems were. As I was prompted to analyze the school, in the process of analyzing where we were, I was able to develop guidelines and observations about how big of a change we'd actually made and what still needed to be done. And our administration was fantastic about applying what I had learned at Boise State to strengthen our school across the ocean. In AECT Standard 3, Candidates demonstrate their ability to facilitate learning by creating, using, evaluating, and managing effective learning environments. As I look back on developing sophisticated and effective learning environments, I found myself really valuing the major projects that I've accomplished in these past 10 semesters, and especially when I learned through two projects in particular: EdTech 503 Instructional Design's infamous ID project, and EdTech 505 Evaluation for Ed Technologists Evaluation for Determining Instructional Purposes assignment. In each of these projects, I was blessed with the opportunity to build more than just a simple assignment or lesson plan, but to see the whole chessboard, so to speak, in regards to how learning environments and experiences work. In the process of creating my portfolio, I found that so many of my peers and predecessors have referenced the ID project as one of the most formative in their MET experience, probably because of how all-encompassing it really is. Developing a sophisticated lesson plan as a teacher is something that I literally do in my sleep. However, as I've been processing it, I visualize what the class will look like, what the instructions plays out like, which audibles I'll need to call along the way, and what resources I'll have to acquire or more likely develop to complete the task. The ID project, though, is difficult because it requires combining learning principles, research, and developing a sophisticated, deliberate plan that can be utilized by a different teacher. In developing my lesson plan, in which I taught colleagues how to app smash a few iPad resources together to better teach their own students, I had to envision and manage a learning environment where I wasn't going to even be a part of, which was difficult but valuable when I later came back to planning my own lessons. I got a true bird's eye view of lesson planning through this project, and it made a huge difference in my teaching. The other assignment that I thought displays my ability to evaluate and manage a learning environment was the EdTech 503 DIP assignment, where I did an evaluation of a program created by a fictional company. This company was looking for someone to come in and make recommendations about a resource they had recently developed and see if it was a worthwhile product. In developing their project, I had to carefully develop a plan I consciously built to best evaluate that product and share the details of what the plan would be, including a budget, a schedule, and a fictional team who would be doing that evaluation. It was a fantastic experience that, while difficult at the time, helped me recognize what all goes into manage a complex process. In AECT Standard 4, candidates demonstrate their ability to design, develop, implement, and evaluate technology-rich learning environments within a supportive community of practice. In more than any other element of my time in the MET program, I found myself blessed by the learning community I've been able to engage with over the past few years. Collaboration has been something of a difficulty for me in my professional career, as I've spent the first 5 years of my teaching isolated in an English second language school across the ocean from the peers that I studied with in college. However, thanks to some of the courses I've been able to take through Boise State, such as EdTech 506 Graphic Design for Learning and EdTech 554 Managing Tech Integration in Schools, I've had ample opportunities to work with teachers around the world to design, develop, implement, and evaluate technology-rich learning environments. A few years ago, when I was teaching second language learners exclusively at an American high school in Taiwan, I was approached by a colleague who was struggling with teaching her students the basic of English grammar, parts of speech. In our discussion, we both lamented the lack of resources that visually expressed what a verb or noun or preposition meant. Days later, I was excited to run towards my colleague and share with her that I'd been creating that very resource as part of my EdTech 506 project. Working closely with her, I was able to translate what I was learning in that class about typography, color, organization, and selection to develop a modern resource that we could use with our different leveled students. The website still stands today, and while both of the colleague and I have left that initial school, we've both shared our work with other colleagues in separate new homes, meaning that our project has truly developed a life of its own. Another example of collaboration on design and learning environment took place a few months ago in my EdTech 554 course, where I worked with 2 other MET students on developing a social media policy for a hypothetical school. We built a document that gave guidance for both teachers and students in how they handled school technology, their social media profiles, their online communications, and how they approach copyright and fair use. While I don't believe that we ever had the opportunity to engage in synchronous communication, either via Skype or phone calls or live conversation, across multiple time zones and complicated work schedules, we were able to design a sophisticated document that has enough principles in it that it could truly be used in a real learning environment. In AECT Standard 5, candidates demonstrate their ability to explore, evaluate, synthesize, and apply methods of inquiry to enhance learning and improve performance. Research has been quite an important component of my experience in the MET program. I've had numerous opportunities to conduct research that should enhance my learning and understanding and ultimately improve my teaching performance. In reflecting on how far I've come in this process, I've identified a few instances of pursuing inquiry, most notably in my EdTech 504 Theoretical Foundations of Educational Technology synthesis paper, and in my EdTech 505 evaluation for educational technologist program evaluation. As one of the more in-depth research projects I completed during my time in the MET program, the EdTech 504 synthesis paper on connectivism was a very beneficial experience for me. After a brief overview on some of the different learning theories as part of this course, we were directed to study one theory on our own further in depth, and the one that stuck out to me most was connectivism. I love the concept that learners don't necessarily need someone to walk them hand in hand to a concept, but should have experiences introduced to them, and that it's their responsibility to connect that to the rest of their experiences. Writing this paper involved a valuable pre-step of completing the first annotated bibliography I've ever done in my life. The process was a great opportunity to explore what had been written about that educational theory, to evaluate which sources were most valuable, and strip away the best meat from the bone, so to speak. The document I produced was a great resource that helped me weave together a strong essay on connectivism, one that I've repeatedly gone back to readdress and restudy in the years since. The other project I feel that involved strong research in an effort to enhance learning and performance was my EdTech 505 evaluation of a peer mentoring program at my current school. This is a program that pairs veteran upperclassmen with newer, struggling, or inexperienced freshmen or sophomores in an effort to support them both academically and socially. In the process of learning about evaluation, my research led me to take a slightly different path from many of my classmates and choose a goal-free model of evaluating the program, meaning that I would purposely avoid learning program objectives in my evaluation. From this experience, I was able to produce a strong evaluation for our guidance counselor who runs the peer mentoring program and our administration who used that document as a jumping off point for a few of our sister schools to launch their own peer mentoring programs. The work I did in applying research to a program turned out to be a beneficial experience that will far outlive my experience at this school.